communication between the ED and the radiologist. So in this example, well, we'll just play with it. We'll just go through some examples, and together we'll customize this workflow space. So I've basically said, here's the ED, and what happens in the ED is when a ED physician opens an exam, it automatically launches one of our custom panels. So you can customize any attribute within the panel. And then after that happens, when the radiologist is in their PACS work list, they open an exam working out of their PACS, and if there is an ED prelim that has been identified, then that automatically launches a panel for the radiologist from that exam so the radiologist can do an ED overread. Let's say there's a discrepancy. What happens in that case is we need to send an alert over to the ED. So we can communicate an alert to the ED, and that can be communicated in a number of different ways. So you can choose that the alert gets communicated via a text to their phone, perhaps to a pager, to an email, or alternatively, it could go to a Quicks work list on an ED workstation. So the discrepancy could be notified to, perhaps there's a charge nurse or a lead nurse that's watching this Quicks work list for communication, or the alert could be sent, via text right to the doctor, the ED doctor. From that point, a number of things can happen. So we can customize this any way we want. What can happen is that nurse can use this work list as a way to ensure that they've communicated, to follow up on these, and we could create a custom panel that could say anything you want to communicate to any of these patients. Perhaps they need to be brought back in or some action needs to be taken. So these pieces of information can be recorded in a customizable panel for you, and the nurse can submit and follow up on those actions. Let's say an action hasn't happened quickly enough. An alarm or escalation process can be put in place. So if something's been on this work list for more than an hour, that nurse can get notified, or someone else on the team, maybe the supervisor of that charge nurse could be notified. So someone else within the process could be notified. We can even send information to other systems via each HL7. So these panels pop up right on the nurse's workstation in the ER. As we're collecting all this information, we can create reports that document and measure things such as how often are there discrepancies, what type of discrepancies, how quickly are they communicated, how quickly are they resolved, how quickly is the loop closed. You can even do additional things. Let's say you identify a discrepancy and you want the radiologist to have a clinical review once a month with the ED staff. We could actually, when the discrepancy is created, we could actually create a clinical review work list. And from this panel, we can launch the PACS and bring the images right up. So you can look at the exam together in a clinical review, the ED doc and the radiologist. So that's kind of a simple workflow. What if we got more complicated with this? So we'll take this offline for a moment. What if we got more complicated? And what if we had residents reading at night? And we had some radiologists on the faculty overreading in the morning. Well, we can, with Quicks, we can just change this up any time. I mean, you can start out with this workflow day one. 6 months later, we could completely change this. We could put a resident in this process, and when they're in their PACS workstation, their PACS work list, they launch an exam. They go through the same process that the radiologist would have. It pops up a panel. Let's say they say, boy, there's, I agree, there's no discrepancy, we're good here. They're quite content. There's been no discrepancy. They think everything's fine. The next morning, the faculty radiologist comes in, and they say, oh my God, oh yeah, there's a discrepancy. So they communicate not only to the resident, but also they communicate to the resident, but also they have to communicate back to the ED so that this process is followed through. Now the faculty person may think, well, this is a teaching opportunity, so what I'd really like is when I notice this discrepancy, I would also like that to go to a clinical follow-up work list. And instead of on the ER side, this clinical review would be for residents. So all of a sudden you have a clinical work list where you can launch the exams for the residents. In addition to that, you have the ability to apply business intelligence and start looking for trends. What types of things do the residents miss? What types of things do we need to incorporate into our curriculum for the staff, for the residents, for the ED? You can do any type of comprehensive reporting on this, so you can create reports about resident discrepancies in the process. Anything else you want to add to the workflow?
When you got